Hey there, welcome to the channel. So today is Sunday, May 15th, and just going to try to take a look at the setup for the week in the stock market. All right, so where we left off, the SPY, we've been kind of getting the crap kicked out of ourselves here, and that was kind of happened again. We had some good days and some bad days. Remember the most important pattern here as we were coming up and things were good is you have the dreaded and dreaded smiley face pattern right there. See that smiley face pattern? We've been downhill pretty much everywhere since. We did kind of come up, almost broke out of the happy face pattern, but no, didn't quite make it out. Came right back down. So we had a really good day on Friday, a good rally, a couple percent, but it's not really significant really in any way, because it's just, look, the trend is down and it's just doesn't mean a thing. It's really one of these basically people short rushing in to buy, to cover, to take some profits. Now, going to the weekly on the SPY, it's kind of interesting, right? We have a hammer, this thing put a hammer. Now, if we're able to get some kind of positive action moving here, it would be interesting, right? Because if we somehow get a green bar going like this, let's say for this week as an example, then that would be kind of interesting, because then that would mean that this pattern here was a hammer. And it's sort of like, you can use the phrase, hammering out a bottom. It's a type of a doji with a very thin body and a very tall wick to the downside there. So it could be a short-term kind of reversal kind of pattern, but we'll have to see. Now, if we start opening up into the wick and putting in new lows, then none of that's on the table at all. So that's our SPY. And we look at our Dow Jones Industrial Average. So I'm in the weekly charts here, just kind of going back to the weekly. Dow Jones, same kind of thing. Look at our Qs. Qs are, another doji down there, looking at the volumes, really heavy volumes in the last 3 weeks. So really heavy selling. And and we're getting down to that point where the RSI is a little bit maybe finally going to sneak undersold. But I don't really know. I mean, I tend to think there's a lot more selling to come, but I just would not be surprised if we're just overdone and we get some kind of a rally here. And given, what kind of thing would I expect for a rally? First of all, because it's a bear market, and I would expect the rally to be vicious and fast, very, very vicious and fast. Let's see. And then what would I expect? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. If you look here, here's your most recent, support area. This would now be your resistance. So your resistance would now be at this 325 range. So you could see very violent moves up into here. And a matter of fact, I would not in any way be surprised. And this is all speculation, right? We're just kind of hedging things out, kind of taking a look at things. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes further and then comes and then continues its trend. Now, one pattern that is like the IBD, he focuses like on the big bases, and he has what he calls a W pattern. And we all know W patterns, right? But his is a kind of a different one. The IBD guy, his W is like, which is really good. You should buy the IBD books. They're really simple and just, really good stuff to read. But, his pattern to W is like, he likes it to undercut. Now, we have undercut. But we're kind of undercut a lot. I don't know. We need to go look it up and see if like we've undercut by too much, but we've undercut. So if for some miracle this thing starts turning around, it is able, here's the key point, like if you're able to break into new highs and start working up, you could really recover from this thing. However, given all the things that's happening with the Fed, that seems highly unlikely. So if we look at our yields here, swinging back over into that, you can see that, the yields came up. And so there was some money going into bonds, a little bit of bond buying last week. But overall, I mean, your rates are at 3%, so that's just not good. Now, the other one is oil. I have a little bit of oil on because as we looked at it, we had this symmetrical triangle. It broke out to the upside, then got hammered, and now it's starting working the way back up. Now, I'll just say that I don't really feel comfortable about this position at all. I really don't, because it just is like, we're coming up to resistance. We have resistance here around the 112, 115 range. I mean, it really has to, for this thing to really get moving again, it really has to break out. It has to put something in and break out. And so I don't know. I mean, I would just not in any way be surprised if it kind of fails and does more crap like this. The other thing that's happening is with the EU and the oil, I don't know if they'll actually follow through on trying to ban Russian oil, or that'll just fall apart. I mean, I have a feeling that there's getting to be some resistance in some of the other countries, and it's just kind of starting to fall apart. There's cracks there, so it may possibly be that there may be no ban on Russian oil at all at this point. One thing I want to take a look at the Bitcoin, because man, they just got really the crap kicked out of them last week. And look, I see a bar on crypto right now. It's kind of in that area. So this is a kind of a rough chart here. One of the things we could do if we look at the crypto is I want to put the price by volume. Let me show you. So what this does, this indicates on the left the volume that was traded in that price range. So what you see is that, I mean, it's a very simple thing. It's like the more time you spend in a price range, the more shares get traded there generally. It's just like that. And so as I was pointing out earlier, and I'm going to go zoom out a little more so I can show the ramp here. Yeah. So as I was talking about in one of my previous videos is like, hey, Bitcoin was here. It spent a lot of time basing in the 10,000 range, right? And then really in late 2020, it just ramped and went through the roof, and it peaked out at about 62, 64,000. And what's interesting about this as well, look at this thing. This is a classic head and shoulders pattern up here. This is a classic topping pattern. If you look at this pattern and you see that, you can see that, so here is your shoulder, left shoulder, your head came up a little bit higher, but not very much higher in this case. And then you have the right shoulder. Now this, my understanding, is really the classic head and shoulders. That right shoulder is weaker than the left shoulder. It just is not getting up. And that's a sign that it's having a lot of trouble. Technically, it's not very strong. And this here is approximately where the neckline is. And it broke underneath, came back up, and it's right at the neckline. So I think that this could be a very pivotal week in Bitcoin. And when we go and we look at it, look at the volume. As I said, because this moved up so quickly in late 2020, because this move was so fast, this move was so fast that there's very little volume. Look at the volume over here on the left. There's very little trading there. So what that means is there's no supply there, and there's very little supply and very little people. There's very little support. There's just nothing there. So what that means is typically is there's no support there, and there's no bump anywhere that you could say, oh, there was a period of time where there were buyers, sellers, reached equilibrium, and that might be a place where this could come down and support. There's nothing down till 10,000, and you can see there's very little volume until you start getting down to 10,000. So I think, and this is just not financial advice, I just think that this thing is due. I think it's cracked. I think it's broken. I think it's due for 10,000. And this, of course, would be classic. This is classic bubble busting. Bitcoin, all these cryptos, it's just a bubble. I mean, there's nothing new there. Sure, the blockchain is a new technology that can be used in all kinds of things, but that's not Bitcoin. That's a technology to improve transactions, buying, selling houses, how you record deeds, how you track checks, how you all these other things where you can create this blockchain and reduce fraud. And even though things that are maybe slow but reliable ways, there's a whole bunch of applications for it. But that's not spending $60,000 for a virtual piece of nothing, right? So I think, in just looking at this chart, I really think Bitcoin is done. I'm calling right here. I shouldn't do this. I don't do this generally, but I'm calling for Bitcoin 10,000. That's my guess. Look, there's nothing there. There's no support. There's nothing to hold this up. And at the end, it was just, a speculative asset. And this really shows it too, because when you look and you see here in the purple line how the Qs are starting to come off, you see how they're coming off and Bitcoin's coming off with it. it's showing you that it's not giving you that diversification. It's really not in any way. Now, one other ones I can look at here is, let's look at what's going on with gold. Now, I think gold has gotten its thunder stolen from it. Let's see how this. All right. The problem with gold right now, the problem with gold is you have this basically symmetrical kind of triangle here, and it built and it popped out. And this is another one of these. We saw this with oil. It pops out and then it failed, and now it's right back at those lows. So these breakouts of these symmetrical triangles can just be terrible. Very often they're just kind of failing. But one of the big problems with gold right now is that the dollar is very strong, and it's like it just puts that extra bit of pressure on it, right? Can you have gold and the dollar going up together? And the answer, of course, is yes, you can. They can go up together, and they are kind of going up together. But in the big picture, as at some point, the dollar going up is going to put pressure on gold. If the dollar was going down, then that would give a little bit of a tailwind, a little bit of support to gold, but it's not. So I think that still some earnings. There's still like 500 companies reporting or something. Interesting one on Tuesday. You see that there'll be like Walmart, Home Depot. And the only reason I point these out is that, maybe we'll get some kind of indication on what's going on with housing. Right? Like is the demand for Home Depot, are they still seeing plenty of demand for people buying stuff for their homes, that kind of thing? Walmart, retail, is retail still holding up, et cetera? Is there any kind of cracks in that we can start to see? And then we start to see in line with that, retail sales on Tuesday. So we're going to have that. That's probably the interesting one to see if there's any kind of sign, because we're in that negative growth. We had that negative GDP print. Are we in a negative situation where we're in recession? Retail sales may give us some information on that. And then we can go to Wednesday, and now we're going to get our mortgage applications, housing starts, building permits, all that stuff. And that'll just help give us some insight on housing. We know those interest rates have gone up. We know that a lot of the applications have dropped off, et cetera. And we'll just kind of maybe get kind of a feel for, is the situation just still deteriorating for housing? I mean, I think it would be, but maybe there'll be a reprieve. Maybe there'll be some demand. Maybe there's some people that are like feeling like, okay, I'm going to buy now. I got to buy now before the rates go up even more or something like that. Who knows? You never know. And then on Thursday, there's a little bit as well. And Friday could be very quiet. Don't see any events there at all. So we'll get continuing claims and all that stuff in there. So for the unemployment claims and stuff, that should start ticking up, because like we know that they're reporting layoffs in they're reporting layoffs at like the mortgage lenders and stuff like that, because the refi game is shut down because rates have gone up. So given that, I would expect some kind of, possibly increase in layoffs. So in conclusion, we'll kind of see where things are at. I think that we have, a lot of the trends just continuing. We have a strong dollar pushing up. We have rates that have pulled back a little bit, but they're still basically pushing up. I mean, it's amazing. You look at this thing at 3%, it's going to go back to 2018 rates here. So that's got to put a damper on the economy. Coinbase, got the crap kicked out of it. This is going to be an interesting one to see if they survive. Coinbase is going to be an interesting one. I don't know if they're going to make it. If you have your stuff, that's one of those problems that you have, right? If you're trading something, investing in something, you have to set up an account at a broker of some type. And, a lot of what you're doing, it depends on like the quality of that broker, whether if that broker goes bankrupt, you can lose your money, and you have SIPC and stuff for brokers and like stocks and things. But, it doesn't guarantee everything. There's no guarantee that you won't have an issue with that. So if people in Coinbase get screwed over, who knows? And because the issue is not really the big coins, the issue. Well, okay, so we had just looked at the Bitcoin chart, and I said, hey, target 10,000. Well, what's going to happen? I mean, Bitcoin is still at like 28K, 28, 30K. It's going to get cut to 1/3. It's going to lose another 66%. What's going to happen to Coinbase when that happens? I mean, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if there's going to be like a run on the bank, because people are going to be like, look, I sold my Bitcoin. I'm done with this crap. Now send me the money. And The question is going to be, does Coinbase have the money? Where did the money go? Do they have enough money so that if everyone sold their Bitcoin in their Tether and their Ether and all that stuff at the current price, that they can actually send them checks, send them their money back? Or is there other things going on? It will be a good question. Tune in next time to see. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.